Hi guys, Mike from Job Ready English here, and today we're going to talk about how to pass the JP Morgan video interview. Now, for me, JP Morgan is one of the easiest video interviews currently out there at the moment. It's a Hirevue interview, and the reason why it's easy is due to the format. So there are only 3 questions, and each question you get 2 minutes to answer and 30 seconds to prepare in between. So it's a really quick interview as well. You're going to get done and dusted in less than 10 minutes.
You are too hasty, sir. You forget that I have given no answer.
So though it's easy, don't think it means that anybody can pass, because it means that you've got 3 questions to really make an impression upon the Hirevue AI algorithm. So what are the 3 questions they get asked? Well, you get 2 motivation questions and 1 behavioural question, and possibly it could be a commercial awareness question. And stick around until the end of the video when I'm going to tell you about how you can know which behavioural questions might get asked, even if you're unsure or can't find some decent memories from resources that are out there. So let's go through and deal with the questions in turn. So first of all, you're going to get asked, why do you want to work for JP Morgan? Now bear in mind, 2 minutes is not a long time to speak, so you're really looking for 3 or 4 key facts about the company. These should be unique facts, guys. So don't just say, oh, I want to work for JP Morgan because it's big and it's really good and I would thrive there and people there are smart and blah. That's a really boring answer, and it's an answer that I hear all the time. It doesn't differentiate you. It doesn't show that you've done any research, any homework. It's just generic. Anybody could say that about any company. So how do you find out about how to answer why JP Morgan? Well, you can actually find out in our new Skillshare cover letter course below, when I go through and break this down for you guys for free, sharing a template that I've used with hundreds of clients since 2013 to get them interviews at some of the biggest companies in the world. But the really short answer to this is go and do a little bit of homework. I mean, really, you could do this in 15 minutes. You could go and look at their quarterly report, their annual report, latest news about, annual JP Morgan, latest news from Google, Bloomberg, Reuters. But for me, and this is a little hack, something I really like is I'll just go and look at their investor companies. They're publicly traded. I'll look at their investor relations, and then I'll look at something that's called a media pack or a press pack. It will be something, you'll know what it is because it will be a PDF or a PPT. It'll be quite short, generally less than 10 pages, because it really presents everything that the company really wants to shout about the things that they're doing well. And this is a great treasure trove of information. Now you might say, what facts should I choose? So again, you can find that out in the cover letter course down below. But honestly, I would say you want to choose facts that mean something to you. It could be about diversity, about revenue, about the team that you're joining. It could be about the companies that they're acquiring, the projects that they're involved in. Do something that means something to you so that you don't sound like a Wikipedia page. That's a quick bit of advice for you. Motivation question number 2, why this role? So this is a question that we come up against time and time again, and as I've said to you before, this is really something that we split into 2 parts. The first part is we talk about what would you do? Like, what are you actually going to do in this job? What's the 9 to 5? What's the daily task? If you were going to go to work tomorrow, what would you expect to be doing? What are the sort of 3 or 5 big tasks? And there is an absolute heap of resources you can use. Number 1, the job description. Now I understand job descriptions aren't always really helpful. Sometimes they can be very vague, but there's a good thing. There's something called the internet. So you can just take the job description, say you're applying to be a risk analyst at JP Morgan, and you look at the job description and it's not very clear and it's very kind of blah. then just type in risk analyst job description, and you can find that job description in a whole host of other companies, and you can learn about what you'd expect to do, the skills that you're expected to have, maybe technical knowledge that you would need. Now, bearing in mind, if you're saying like, well, Mike, that's a lot of stuff, how long should I talk about this for? You've only got 2 minutes. So we've already outlined the constraints you need to work in. Once you talk about why this role, so I suggest this for a minute, then you talk about why you. And what you want to do is you want to be matching up the skills. So say there's looking for 3 really important skills, then you want to be matching those skills up in terms of you're saying, you know, I've got really good numeracy, or I'm really good at dealing complexity or working under adversity. This is all about pattern matching, essentially, and this is an important concept that we come back to time and time again, and it's a really good principle when thinking about looking for jobs. We're just pattern matching. We're just going out thinking about what the company wants, and we're trying to match ourselves to that as effectively as possible. Cool, so that's the 2 motivation questions. Now what I want to do is deal with another 5 different questions that could get asked. If you remember, back at the beginning of the video, I said we could get asked 1 behavioural or commercial awareness question. Why is it different? Well, it changes based upon the role. So very often in the previous past, the interview videos I've done, people are like, what about this role? Does it apply for this? What if I'm a brick? All that kind of stuff. And I don't generally tend to answer those questions because the honest answer is, I don't know. But it's a pretty good shout to think that interviews are going to change. And always the process is changing. Generally not that often or as often as you'd think, but big companies might change their process once a year, and they might have a pool of questions that they draw from so that different interviewees have similar experiences but not the same.
Same, but different, but still same.
And really that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? So let's look at a couple of behavioural questions. Tell me about a recent challenge that you faced. Now we want to answer this in a STAR style format because it's a behavioural question: situation, task, action, result. And if you're thinking about what's the story that I should tell, this really ties into another idea that I will probably be mentioning more and more in these videos, which is telling STAR stories. Really what we're trying to do is it's like, what's the one story that you feel really shows you off as being a bit of a Superman? You know, when we think about overcoming a challenge, it's not like, oh, I handed in a project and it was good. Come on, dude. Like, I know that you did that, but that's seriously not the biggest challenge that you've overcome. So what's the biggest challenge? And then explain it in a way and think, what's really the important parts of solving a challenge? Well, you know, identifying the elements, putting together a solution, finding people to help us with things we don't know what to do, putting in together a plan, managing our time and resources, and coming towards a good solution. What's the next question? What's your biggest strength? Now, this is sort of a question that's actually quite easy to answer because, again, we're thinking about this idea of pattern matching. So the company, JP Morgan, will tell you about the biggest skills that they're looking for, right? They might be say, oh, we need certain analytical ability or numeracy or something like that, right? So you actually kind of know what's the biggest strength that they're looking for. Now, don't be lame and just copy that. There's going to be a certain strength that you had. Maybe you're a really strong communicator. Maybe you're a good systems thinker. Maybe you're just super numera and a little maths genius. Like, talk about that. And also, biggest strength is kind of a behavioural question, but you wouldn't use STAR. Same for biggest weakness, but you give a little example. So you might say, actually, I'm really numera. I'm highly analytical. I'm studying maths at Oxbridge, for example. And I came in silver in some kind of super maths genius Olympiad, something like that, right? And the same goes for when we're talking about the biggest strength. Now, this is a question that we're actually, in the next coming weeks and months, we're going to be releasing more videos around questions, individual questions and how to answer them. When thinking about your biggest weakness, so there's the really lame answers, which is like, I work too hard, I can't say no, I'm a people pleaser, wah. And it's really generic and kind of false. for what I kind of like is like a weakness with a save. So for example, my biggest weakness is I'm not a details guy. This video is actually a reshoot of the previous JP Morgan video I did, and the audio was rubbish. It was really echoey, really tinny, and I didn't notice that. My lovely assistant Red, he edited the video, he put it out, and then loads of people complained, and they're like, the audio's terrible, fix it, you're a terrible human being, and we got disliked a lot. Why? Because I'm not a details guy. So what I kind of came back around to, and this is something that we noticed when we reviewed all our videos, we were like, oh, lots of people don't like this video, and their comments appear to be super angry and they don't like us anymore. So it's like, okay, let's reshoot this and get some better sound. How do I overcome my biggest weakness? Well, actually, I try to outsource my details problem. So these days, I don't do a lot of video editing. These days, I will really rely on my assistant. Why? Because I've got so many things that I'm trying to do. And if I try and do all of them, I end up doing them all badly and forgetting people, forgetting clients, not turning up to calls. So slowly over time, I outsource that. And you can use that with other things. Just think about a weakness that you have, which isn't a game changer. Like I like to attack people with axes, or I'm always really late, or actually I am generally sexually inappropriate in the workplace. Like have some common sense, but we all kind of know what our weaknesses are if we're being really honest with ourselves. Next, tell me about a time when you dealt with complexity. Why does this question come up? Because banking is complicated, and generally the stuff that you do will be complex, and there'll be lots of stuff going on, and you'll have to do all these different things throughout the day and have all these different stakeholders and deadlines and blah, blah, blah. So they kind of like to do this. Well, how can we answer this if you're a student, for example? Well, you deal with complexity quite a lot because you have multiple deadlines. You might have multiple deadlines plus job, plus boyfriend, girlfriend, pet, plus family. So that's an idea of dealing with complexity, or it could be at work, just something that's not simple and easy to do and has more than one moving part. And it's kind of something I like to think about. Like David Allen said, I couldn't solve this in 2 minutes and just say like, get that done right now. Now the last question is talking about commercial awareness. Tell me about a recent piece of financial news. Now, why could this be asked? Generally, if we're dealing with kind of front office-y roles, middle office, so front office is that kind of investment banking, corporate finance, equity research, these types of roles. Well, really, that's going to be your business. Your business is knowing what's going on in the markets and being able to assist clients and make decisions based upon that. So knowing about the financial news would be really good. Now, for me, a really easy way to look at this, and I spoke to a client about this recently, and she was like, I tried to read the Financial Times every day and then my head exploded. I was like, dude, no one's got the time for that, right? Unless that's literally your job. So what I recommend that you do is just read BBC Business News. Like start off with something that's really simple, standardize, and then if you feel like you want to level up after a while, then go on and do that. But start small. Like don't start with, I read the Financial Times every day, or I read The Economist. I tried to read The Economist every month because I was like, oh my God, I'd be super smart if I read The Economist. Do you know what happened? I had like 7 weeks of economists just staring back at me. This was during lockdown, and I was just, they would just look at me just going, I don't think you want to subscribe to me, and I just cancelled the subscription. So lastly, but not least, how do we know what behavioural questions might get asked? So say we know there's going to be 5 questions in an interview and 3 might be behavioural, but they might change. Because motivational questions are the same, right? Why JP Morgan, why this role? But when we're thinking about behavioural questions, what we really want to think about is what are the skills that the employer is looking for? And again, we go back to the job description. We look at that and we're like, what skills are they looking for? They want leadership. They'll probably answer a question about leadership. Are they saying we want somebody who can do like risk analytical blah blah? They probably gonna give me a question which is based around that. Complexity, leadership, teamwork. blah, blah, blah. You get the idea, right? There's lots of behaviours that can be tested for. There are and there aren't, because they basically boil down to a couple. But that's a really good way that you can learn about which behavioural questions might get asked. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to the channel, smash that like button, put the notifications on, and we'll see you again soon for another Pass the Interview video. Good luck.